on this edition of Sightings. In October of 1967, something strange crashed into the water at Shag Harbor, Nova Scotia.
There's more than we know about, or will ever know about.
Now, almost 30 years later, Sightings mounts a salvage operation to search for answers. As the death toll mounts, many Hawaiians are saying it's the gods themselves who are trying to stop the island's newest freeway.
The spirits are angry and they take it out on humans. And I believe we'll see many accidents and disasters in that freeway.
The paranormal activity in this house has forced its residents to flee in terror.
In all fairness, I could not leave those families there in that house.
And was it a miracle that helped this fireman keep his cool in a blazing inferno?
Welcome to Sightings. I'm Tim White. Recently, Sightings brought you the story of an apparent UFO crash in Shag Harbor, Nova Scotia in southeastern Canada. A significant government paper trail reveals startling evidence that there may be extraterrestrial debris hidden at the bottom of the shallow harbor. With Canadian investigator Chris Stiles, Sightings is launching its first UFO recovery operation. Shag Harbor, at the southern tip of the Canadian province of Nova Scotia, has changed little in the last 100 years. Generation after generation here have earned their living from the sea, hauling lobster and cod out of the icy waters of the Atlantic Ocean. And Shag Harbor would have remained an obscure northern outpost if it had not been for one strange night in 1967. There was a bright light, an enormous crash, and an unprecedented joint mobilization of Canadian and American government forces.
Exactly what hit the water in Shag Harbor, I'm not sure of. But whatever it was tracked for a great distance. It was in trouble.
This man is a member of the Canadian Armed Forces with a security clearance above top secret. He was part of the original Shag Harbor strike force and spoke exclusively with Sightings about what the military knew.
It had entered the high atmosphere over in northeastern Siberia. I was told that it hit the water, crash landed, and had actually moved underwater. This thing was not only aerodynamic, but hydrodynamic also. It had the capacity to travel in two mediums.
Many saw it from a distance. It was a moonless night, and they weren't quite sure what it was they were seeing, but all were sure that indeed a large object had dropped out of the sky and hit the surface of the water.
UFO investigator Chris Stiles has spent several years tracking the Shag Harbor paper trail and interviewing eyewitnesses, including Lawrence Smith, the captain of the first civilian boat to arrive at the crash site. Smith remembers seeing a strange, thick foam floating above where the UFO sank.
Maybe the military is hiding something that they don't want us to know about. I don't believe that they want to talk about it. There's more than we know about, or will ever know about.
Stiles' relentless pursuit of information recently turned up new proof that American interest in the Shag Harbor UFO investigation extended to the highest levels of the U.S. military.
One interesting document on Shag Harbor that's recently come to our attention is the APRO document. APRO, which is an acronym for the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, says quite clearly that at the time of the Shag Harbor event, there was a U.S. air photo reconnaissance mission in the area at high altitude. An hour later, after the event, we have a strategic air command operation in the area.
According to members of the Canadian military who wish to remain anonymous, the UFO was amphibious. After crashing into the waters of Shag Harbor, the craft continued to move underwater toward a top-secret military installation off Government Point in Shelburne. It touched off a major security alert.
Near where the UFO had moved, there was a top-secret listening post for submarine detection, part of a net. And this thing almost moved over top of their cable.
This object was resting on what is known as the MAD grid. That's an acronym which stands for Magnetic Anomaly Detection, part of the base's function. Certainly, one can imagine the concerns ran high during this period to find that an unknown object was literally a few miles from the location of this base, which was tasked with such an important job in North American defense.
Substantiation of the claim that the UFO did not sink in Shag Harbor can also be found in the APRO document. It states that shortly after the UFO impact, Maritime Command received a report from the Coast Guard cutter Sir William Alexander, stating that, quote, an object shaped like a torpedo was observed going along the surface, emitting flames and smoke at 44 degrees 23 minutes north latitude, 64 degrees 9 minutes west longitude. Maritime Command ordered an immediate search and recovery operation.
The Navy did have a strong expectation of finding artifacts.
The way that the UFO hit the water, it is possible something sheared off. If there were any debris found by the divers in Shag Harbor, that would have been the highest security issue on the East Coast at that time.
Officially, Maritime Command reports that Navy divers came up empty-handed. But local fisherman Donald Nickerson was there during the recovery operation and observed something being hauled out of the water.
Yeah, when we got there, they kind of acted like they didn't want us there. Seemed like it was secret. When the divers come up, there was two divers swimming with a metal, and then they passed it up aboard the boat to the guys aboard the boat. It was a piece of aluminum, or it looked like a piece of aluminum to us. It looked like it had been up some.
It is Chris Stiles' hope that the government divers didn't get everything, that there may still be UFO debris at the bottom of Shag Harbor. Working with Sightings, Stiles has assembled a top-flight search and recovery team, including technicians from Canadian Seabed Research Incorporated, professional divers, and camera operators. State-of-the-art technology, including side-scan sonar, will be used to see through the murky water and paint a perfect picture of the ocean floor. On board, researchers will study the images, trying to determine potential impact patterns, as well as pieces of wreckage that may have resisted 28 years of ocean currents.
For instance, this target here has quite a high shadow behind it.
Air support assists the team in pinpointing the UFO impact site, as described in the APRO document.
Roger, Survey 1, standing by.
Almost immediately, sonar readings indicate the team has a hit.
Bridge, this is Survey Control. We have the target.
Chris Stiles is cautiously optimistic. The recovery team realizes that this target is more likely to be a submerged rock formation than a UFO. But the search has only just begun. The first signs from Shag Harbor are encouraging. Stiles and the salvage crew continue to scan the area, and we'll bring you their complete underwater survey on the next edition of Sightings.
Next, out of air and surrounded by flames, Kenneth Carter needed a miracle to survive.
I said, if you're here to help me, then show me the way out, now.
Few letters from Sightings viewers have touched us the way that Kenny Carter's letter did. He wrote to us about a deeply personal encounter with the supernatural. I was a firefighter, Kenny's letter begins. During the first few years, I never really came close to death, although some of the guys did. Then, in 1970, death called me.
There's no person on this earth, I think, that could ever tell me that it was all, in your mind. You didn't see anything. You didn't experience anything. I know what I saw.
Kenneth Carter has seen things most people hope they'd never see. As a veteran firefighter, Ken has faced more than his share of disasters and grief. He has also faced death, an experience that continues to haunt him even after more than 25 years.
I was at a point where this was probably going to, be my last fire. I was probably going to die.
The night of January 12th, 1970, started out like any other for Ken Carter, a young firefighter on duty at the Hialeah Fire Department just outside Miami, Florida.
We were all just sitting around, relaxing after we cleaned up the kitchen and everything.
Going off from the scene at 1824 West 4 Avenue, Pandora's box. You spot smoke coming from the windows and doors.
10-4, have units en route.
We're having a lot of fires. that particular month. The fire that we had in the evening hours of January 12th was at a building called Pandora's Box. There's always fear involved, not knowing every building is different, every fire is different.
The aptly named Pandora's Box was a local bar and discotheque. Once on the scene, Ken and his partner lost no time in entering the inferno.
We were confronted with heavy smoke. We were very, very hot inside already, in open flames.
Soon, the thick smoke and intense heat forced Ken's partner to retreat. Ken chose to stay inside.
I kept on fighting the fire and trying to knock down as much fire as I possibly could. And the opportunity was there to do as much as I could until he got back or the backup crew came in. But that didn't happen. I heard a warning signal go off. The warning signal is hooked to our air tanks. Then you only have approximately 4 minutes of air left in your tank. At that point, I said, well, it is time to leave the building. I turned around, I picked up the hose like you're supposed to do, and I attempted to follow it out of the building. And I kept following the hose, and every few feet I run across another section of hose, like it was twisted like spaghetti laying there. And when I started to draw down on my air tank, my mask started to collapse on my face, and I knew at that point that I was out of air. So I removed my mask and was confused, started to become disoriented. I realized that I was going to have to do something very, very drastic or very, very lucky to get out of this building. I knew that I couldn't follow the hose out. I saw no lights that I could, orientate myself to get out of the building. And this is when I decided, well, maybe this is it for me. Maybe this is my final fire. Maybe this is when I meet my last alarm. I was starting to cough and gag. What I decided to do at that point was just settle up my life, I guess. And I knelt down and I asked for some type of divine intervention. Across the room, I just saw something out of the corner of my eye. It was like a blue light, a light blue light. It grew larger and it started to take the shape of a young lady, and bathed in still the blue light. Her clothes was like a long billowing type veils, and a very peaceful, very serene look on her face. Of course, I was startled and thinking, well, maybe I've already died, and this is the after-death experience that people have explained to me over the years that they've gone through, and it's time for me to offer myself up. And at that point, I looked her right in the face and I said, if you're here to take me, then I'm ready to go. I said, but if you're here to help me, then show me the way out, please, now. And at that point, she never changed her expression or anything on her face, but she did lift her arm and she pointed. I got up off my knees and went the way she had pointed. I had no idea where I was headed. When I got to the point where she had pointed, I felt nothing but wall. But when I pushed on this section where I was standing, a door opened and I fell out into the parking lot.
Later that same night, after the fire had been knocked down, Ken went back into the building in search of an explanation for his vision.
I visually just scanned the room, and everything within my view was pretty good distance away except for one post that was in the middle of the room. And I walked over to the post and I said, well, this is what I had to see, with blue lights on it, and, still trying to, I think, deny a little bit, this whole incident. When I examined the post, I had removed my glove to do so. I don't know why, because everything inside of this building was still extremely hot. But when I touched the post was cold. And as I touched the post, like a blue tinge started to encircle my hand. And I knew then that this was totally a true incident that happened to me. And this is when I, really, really decided it's time to thank somebody.
Fire Marshal Robert Stedman, recovering from throat surgery, still remembers his reaction to Ken's amazing story.
I confronted Kenny. Kenny, you told me at that fire you were let out of there. What do you mean let out? till he told me, yes, Ma, I was let out by my angel. Since then, I believe that he was let out by an angel.
Author and researcher Alma Daniel finds Ken Carter's encounter typical of those who have been touched by an angelic experience.
An angel cannot interfere with your free will or your destiny, but if it is not your time to go, the angel will definitely guide you through whatever situation, whatever traumatic moment that you are in, whatever danger you may be in, will make sure that you get out.
For other firefighters who regularly face life or death situations, reports of divine interventions are not uncommon.
You know, you go out on every call, and after it's over with, you kind of stand back and you look and say, well, you know, how did we come through this in one piece? And in the back of your mind, you know, the whole time you got somebody looking after you. There's no doubt about it.
I think we definitely have got someone looking after us.
We have guardian angels out there looking after us.
If you have not fulfilled your purpose on this planet, if you still have a contribution to make, the angel will be there and make sure that you get through.
Soon after the fire at Pandora's Box, Ken Carter transferred to Hialeah's emergency rescue team. He has spent a quarter century saving the lives of others.
It's a terrific job. You can help so many people through so many situations. Saving a life there's nothing in this world that compares to it. Nothing. And I still see her vision every now and then. I still picture her even today. I get chilled. I'm still thinking about it.
Kenneth Carter is only one of a number of firefighters who believe that they have been saved by an angel. In fact, the blue glow that Carter describes is a common vision among firefighters who've narrowly escaped death while saving others.
Next, NASA technology uncovers lost civilizations. And ancient Chinese philosophy helps home sales. Later, the curse of Hawaii's H3.
Here are some of the stories Sightings is following in the news. The southwest corner of the Arabian Peninsula is so devoid of life it's called the Empty Quarter. Well, now satellite imaging from NASA has found a city in the Empty Quarter, unseen for 2,000 years. In Oman, the city of Ubar was known only through ancient legend and fable, until NASA imaging radar proved that this was one mythical city that was not a myth. Ubar was uncovered 4 years ago by amateur archaeologist Nicholas Clapp.
We started out with the space shuttle on the Space Shuttle Challenger in October 1984, and we had 2 passes over our site that actually gave us the very first map of the area.
Lawrence of Arabia called Ubar the Atlantis of the sands, a lost city that could never be found. But in 1991, ancient caravan roads were detected in these satellite photographs, and all roads led to Ubar.
All of a sudden we realized that what we saw on the surface was just the tip of the iceberg, that there was a large fortress with 9 towers, and 3,000 years ago it would have been a pretty significant outpost of civilization.
While brand new radar imaging of the oceans has failed to turn up Atlantis yet, several other mythical cities on land have been discovered.
It's making a real dent in Central American archaeology, where it cuts all the way through the foliage, and you can see what's down in ground level. And there's some real abiding myths out there. Obviously Sodom and Gomorrah, there's 3 or 4 Islamic myths, and I think sooner or later things like that are going to be solved.
In the capital city of Bamako, in Mali, a recent resurgence in traditional medicine, faith healing, and sorcery had mainstream doctors worried. But now, a study by the government's health department has found that many ancient herbal cures are as good as, if not superior to, imported Western medicines. 80% of Mali's 10 million people rely on leaves, roots, and ritual to successfully treat coughs and colds, ulcers, and even malaria. And at the same time, many Malis are also rediscovering the ancient African tradition of juju, in which sacred animal parts are solemnly administered to patients complaining of everything from heart ailments to an unsatisfactory love life.
Studies done here could mean that the medicine of the future will include not only herbs, but desiccated bird parts, mammal urine, and lizard blood. In Southern California's sprawling suburbs, progressive builders are now designing new homes based on architectural principles that date back more than 1,000 years. It's the Chinese design principle called feng shui.
Feng Shui literally is translated into wind and water, and they are the natural elements in our environment. And the biggest concept of Feng Shui is about the balance in life.
Marcia Galanko, a feng shui consultant, advises builders that a harmonious environment begins with the site. Homes should be built on a gentle hill, never on flat land.
The rationale behind is the flow of the qi, which is a life force, and it's believed that positive energy flows on a gentle curved surface, and a negative qi flows on a straight line.
Galanko warns builders that potential buyers immigrating from the Pacific Rim prefer the positive number 8 instead of the negative number 4 over the front door, and they will avoid homes where the staircase faces the front door.
There is a cultural belief that the staircase that's facing the door, that all the good things flows out of the home into the street. So when people are looking for homes, they would choose not to have the staircase facing the front door.
Although most builders who consult with Galanko are looking initially for ways to increase home sales in Asian communities, they are finding that the application of ancient feng shui principles is benefiting home sales in all areas.
When we first started this design process, the whole concept of feng shui was unconventional to us. We maybe questioned a little bit, but once we incorporated in the design, we had very positive comments about our homes, and our home sales have picked up.
Feng Shui is not just superstition. It's not just a cultural belief. It's actually a very wise concept about the quality of our lives. And anybody can actually use it to bring out the goodness in them and to make wise choices.
We'll have more stories from the news next time. Now, here's what's coming up on Sightings.
There's trouble in paradise as deadly accidents plague Hawaii's haunted highway.
The Hawaiian gods have a way of taking care of their own.
Is the Roswell autopsy footage a hoax?
Later, fallout from the so-called alien autopsy film.
When Hawaii became our 50th state in 1959, the government vowed to protect and preserve the ancient traditions of this island paradise. But time, a population boom, and the inexorable march of commerce are changing the face of Hawaii and its culture. And this, say many Hawaiians, has made the gods very angry. Carla Wall reports.
On the island of Oahu, the tropical landscape has had to make way for vacationers and the high-rise resorts that line Waikiki Beach. And just outside of Honolulu, a lush and sacred valley has been forced to make way for this. Once completed, the H3 freeway will connect Pearl Harbor with the Kaneohe Marine Base. The road bisects the Halava Valley, a sacred and kingly Hawaiian burial site filled with ancient shrines.
I believe that the Hawaiian gods will take care of those who are responsible for this freeway, and that we're going to see them meet up with very unexpected and nasty ends.
Lilikalaka Me'elahiva is an associate professor at the State University Center for Hawaiian Studies. She's done extensive research into the history and culture of the Halava Valley. She warns that by building here, the Highway Department has unwittingly released a curse on the H3 project. When bones are unearthed and destroyed, what happens in the Hawaiian culture, belief system?
When you disturb the bones, you're disturbing the spirit. The spirits are angry and they're walking the land angry. Then they take it out on humans. And I believe we'll see many, many accidents and disasters on that freeway. We've already seen quite a number of freak accidents that have happened with the construction of the freeway.
In fact, Interstate H3 has been plagued by disaster. 20 years behind schedule and almost $1 billion over budget, critics charge the highway is the greatest boondoggle in the state's history. 2 construction workers have died working on H3, and there are numerous reports of freak accidents, equipment failures, and haunting apparitions. It was in 1992 that archaeologists surveying the area for the State Highway Department discovered several ancient sites of rare and powerful significance. Earl Neller is a state archaeologist and cultural historian studying the Halava Valley.
How significant are the sites that the highway is cutting through?
The valley that was chosen for the project is probably the valley with the most sites. And not only did it have a lot of sites, the archaeological sites in Halava are quite unusual.
One of the most important sites is this women's shrine called a heiau. These rocks and stone terraces are sacred to the people of Hawaii because it is here, legend says, that Hawaii's Earth Mother was born.
They discovered that these petroglyphs were underneath the moss, and they scraped some of the moss off so they could be easier to see. And one of the figures is a childbirth petroglyph with a figure with a dot between the legs.
It is the women of Hawaii who are protesting most strongly against what they perceive as the desecration of a holy place.
Weekend after weekend, without any publicity, women started hiking up in the valley to see this site. They wanted to find out what it was all about.
I traveled to the site with several Hawaiian women and asked them about the supernatural forces at work here.
It brings the people that are supposed to be here, you know, sometimes even against their will. The people that are supposed to be here, they're supposed to take care of this place, they just have to do it.
Do you feel that you're called here?
Yeah. I think that all of us who come here and take care of this place are called here.
Laulani is one of many young Hawaiians who feel that in order to protect and preserve the old ways, they must protect and preserve the valley.
To us, to whom this valley speaks, this is a cathedral. This is a sacred place, and, you know, there's no value that you can put on it. There's something that's here, and right now, you know, there's a strong voice crying out because it's being hurt.
To protect the heiau and several sacred burial sites in the valley, protesters have tried to disrupt construction, but the trucks continue to roll, seemingly unconcerned about warnings that ancient spirits inside the valley have now joined the fight. Filmmaker Naomi Sodatani is producing a documentary about the ill-fated highway project and the eerie effect this valley has had on many workers.
Their construction workers and subcontractors have witnessed equipment moving without operators being in them and then stopping and starting, and they've seen presences. And a good many of them have actually quit.
Discussing the so-called curse of H3 isn't against the law, but Sightings found one highway opponent who discussed construction experiences only if we guaranteed anonymity.
They were working near the entrance to the tunnel, and they looked towards the back. It seemed to be a ghost walking toward them of an old Hawaiian man dressed in white mao. They were so terrified they ran from the tunnel, and a Hawaiian priest was brought in to bless the area, because they were frightened to work there.
And the curse of H3 didn't end there.
They were doing work at the back of the valley, and they had loaded up a dump truck with huge boulders from out of the side of a mountain. And all of a sudden, the truck overturned onto the side of the road, and the driver ran back to get help. When they got back to the truck, the boulders had returned to the mountain. They were not in the truck at all.
She also learned of numerous unexplained equipment failures.
brand new equipment purchased for the project, and they would get it into the valley. It would start working. All of a sudden, it would get into a certain area, and it would stop. And no matter what mechanics they brought in, they couldn't get it started again. They'd have to tow it out of the valley, and when they towed it out, it started up again. There were also stories of equipment that burst into flames. There's something going on that I can't explain.
But cultural historians say the answer is quite simple.
Putting a freeway through Halava is very akin to putting a freeway through Machu Picchu. The land, especially there in Halava, is sacred. When we go there and we look at the beauty of the land and the beauty of those temples, we are touched in our heart to have such disregard for our traditions and our beliefs is really a stab in the heart of the Hawaiian people.
When H3 is completed, will you travel on H3? Do you think it will be dangerous for other people to travel on H3?
I will never travel on H3, ever, no matter what. And I don't think that there are too many Hawaiians that are going to be eager to travel on the freeway either. I suspect that we're going to see a lot of accidents happening right where the most sacred sites are. And I would just like to warn those unwitting and unknowing travelers that they take their life in their hands. And that's because the Hawaiian gods have a way of taking care of their own.
Hawaii Senator Daniel Inouye was one of H3's earliest proponents, and he continues to champion the controversial project. Sightings has made several requests for an interview with Senator Inouye, but our requests were declined.
Next, are Civil War spirits forcing the residents of this home to flee in terror?
I says, I want y'all to pray in this house because what I just saw was spiritual warfare.
3 years ago, Jean Davis and her son, Gary McCoy, decided to open their hearts and their Atlanta home to women in need. And until recently, Jean and Gary were able to provide shelter and job training for dozens of homeless women. But now that's all changed. There's an unwelcome visitor in the house, a visitor they believe is not of this world.
I get a tremendous fear all over my body. My heart beats faster. I feel like I want to pass out. It's a feeling like something is enclosed around me. It's just a feeling of evilness.
The sense of evil that so many people have experienced here is so strong that homeless women and children desperate for a house, any house, will not stay in this house.
In all fairness, I could not leave those families there in that house.
Jean Davis bought this Atlanta, Georgia house in 1992. She wanted to make a difference in the lives of families who needed job training, counseling, and a safe place to stay. But almost immediately, what Jean had hoped would be a sanctuary became a center of fear and anxiety, where residents and personnel alike reported disturbing visions, eerie sounds, and revolting odors.
This smell that I detected was every kind of filth that's in the world. Dead bodies, urine, feces, everything was just rolled into one. It wanted to make you gag.
When I first moved in the house and became resident manager, there was a lump on the kitchen floor. Now, I didn't pay any attention to the lump, and I said, well, maybe it's just a water lump. I was standing in the kitchen one night, I guess it must have been about 10 o'clock. I was leaning up against the washing machine, and I was just standing there looking at the floor, and the lump actually moved right before my eyes. And that's when I knew something was wrong. I knew something was wrong.
Operations manager Gary McCoy believes the source of the haunting lies in the basement, in part because his otherwise obedient dog Cleo recoils in fear when she approaches the basement door.
I want you to go check it out. Come on, let's go. Let's go, come on. Cleo is a dog that I've had since she was 6 weeks old. I could just about go tell her to go in the middle of the main street here and go to the yellow line and sit there, and she'll do it. But when it came to that basement, there is no getting her next to that basement. She will stand there and she will defy me to the utmost, and she will say, no, I'm not going down in there. She will never and has never gone in that basement.
What it is, I have no idea. But it's something is in that house. Something is in there to cause the unrest. You know, people don't rest in that house. You know, they don't. You come over here, it's quiet. Over there is always noisy. And it doesn't mean that it could be quiet. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. It's quiet, but within that quietness, there's no stillness.
To have a whole house empty, and we're in the business of housing women, homeless women and children. The calls are coming left and right. I mean, they're out there very desperate, crying, but what can we do? What can we do? We have to close the house down.
In an effort to rid the house of the overbearing aura of evil, a Catholic priest from the Atlanta Archdiocese was asked to bless the house. But his visit only reinforced the fear that something beyond reason was in control here.
The priest came in, Carol, Gary, and myself, and the priest, we went in the house. The priest went through the whole house. He sprinkled holy water over the whole house. He never gave us a direct yes answer, but we could tell by the way that he was acting that he felt something. Something wasn't right.
He called the name Lucifer, and I started talking about what had happened. And as soon as he said the name Lucifer, the house, this rumbling came from the basement.
There was a loud, thunderous rumble up under our feet, like the house was coming up off the hinges. At that point, I jumped up, I flew out the front door.
I says, I want y'all to pray in this house because what I just saw was spiritual warfare.
But why this house? Why these people who were reaching out a hand of support and comfort? Sightings asked title examiner Christopher Cafaro to research the area's past for clues to the present haunting. He linked the house to a bloody Civil War battle.
There were 3 battles for the city of Atlanta. The third one took place in what is called the Battle of Ezra Church. Ezra Church was located approximately maybe a quarter mile, if that, from this house. So this house is sitting in the hot spot of a pretty substantial Civil War battle where I would say about 5,000 Confederate troops and 600 federal troops died.
Sightings also asked psychic Peter James to conduct an on-site investigation in the Atlanta house. Without any knowledge of the area's past, he was able to confirm psychically the home's connection to a bloody confrontation.
What I sense in here is I get the impression of a man who wears some kind of a headpiece or a hat, and I see like a brim on the hat or something wide on his head, and I'm feeling that he stabbed someone, but he himself was murdered. You see? So it's like there's like a double whammy here.
Just a few minutes into the investigation, Reba fled in fear and could not be convinced to return.
My heart started beating. I thought I was going to pass out. It's not working for me, letting them do it on their own. I've seen enough of what I want to see anyway. I know there's something in there. You ain't got to walk me through it. I know. That's it.
While Reba waited outside, Peter led the remaining staff into the basement. This was the source of the haunting, he told them.
Okay, here, cold spot. Feel this. Come on, put your hand through here. Feel it, look, feel it. Feel it.
Peter felt that the spirit was feeding on their collective fear. To make the haunting go away, the group would have to confront the supernatural force.
There are loving souls that need to occupy this house. Your presence is no longer welcome here. Be gone now!
After the session, the group members were hopeful but somewhat skeptical, until Cleo did something she'd never done before.
Where are there lights? I mean, she's even this close.
Whatever it was, it's on its way out or it's already gone, because knowing the way she acted in the past and never even wanted to go near the door to the basement and having gone as far as she did gives me some type of comfort.
I have a great sense that this house will once again experience peace and peaceful living.
Although Peter James believes he has successfully purged the shelter of its evil spirits, many women who stayed there since our investigation continue to feel uneasy in the home. For that reason, the owners have decided to convert it to a men's shelter and transfer the women to a different location.
Next, Sightings viewers go on air and online to speak out on the alien autopsy film.
So I think there's probably covering up somewhere.
The Sightings online site continues to offer viewers a unique opportunity to download information and images and to dialogue with people nationwide on paranormal topics. Recently, we initiated our largest live chat forum ever. And not surprisingly, the one topic on everyone's mind was the Roswell autopsy film.
Fact or fiction? Paranormal breakthrough or elaborate hoax? The Roswell autopsy film has generated a public debate unequaled since the original saucer report nearly 50 years ago. And after Sightings' original report on the film, where a majority of experts expressed disdain for the authenticity of the footage, viewer response was immediate and not altogether favorable.
The feeling of respect and integrity towards Sightings that my friends and I have held has been destroyed by your obvious cover-up and disinformation campaign concerning the alien autopsy.
Most viewers took advantage of Sightings' online site. In fact, in the weeks after the report, there was a 50% increase in email messages. The film is clearly 1947 vintage. The shots were not always filmed from the best angle because this was not a movie set, but an autopsy lab. You were totally slanted to it being a fake and made it sound like no expert believes it is real. That just isn't true. Due to the overwhelming response, Sightings conducted an online survey and posed the question, do you believe the film of the Roswell autopsy is real? 74% of viewers responded yes.
Is the Roswell autopsy footage a hoax? We're exploring that question right now with Rob Morheim, segment producer with the TV magazine show Sightings.
We responded to viewer concern about our take on the autopsy film by initiating a live, unrehearsed open forum, on air and online simultaneously. Appearing on Michael Corbin's weekly network radio program, The Paranet Continuum, Sightings was also plugged into a chat session on America Online.
Did you want to believe that this was true?
Not necessarily. I like to think I have an open mind. I don't think there's been really enough evidence, so I think there's probably covering up somewhere.
The opportunity to dialogue about the Roswell autopsy film, as well as the controversy surrounding it, continues. And Sightings will continue to bring you the considered opinions of experts on every side of the issue, because the best way to get to the truth of any issue is to explore the evidence in an open, educated forum.
While many Sightings viewers disagreed with our cautious approach about the Roswell autopsy film, it was your comments on the internet and in phone calls and letters that prompted us to expand the original investigation. We hope that you'll continue to communicate with us on any and all paranormal topics that you'd like to see on Sightings.
From Paramount Home Video, 3 special editions of Sightings. The UFO Report, the Ghost Report, and the Psychic Experience are $14.95 each. Suggested retail price wherever videos are sold, or by calling 1-800-555-9752.
Until next time, remember, no mystery is closed to an open mind. For Sightings, I'm Tim White.
Next on Sci-Fi, Dark Shadows.
A good reporter distills information into news.
Journalists bring about change.
A great interviewer always looks his subject in the eye, even if it's in the middle of his forehead.
Oh, yes, supermodel!
For the reporters at the Chronicle, the unbelievable isn't fiction.
Wow. All this is real.
If you're not ready for the truth, don't ask for it.
The Chronicle, a Sci-Fi original series. Fridays at 7 on Sci-Fi.
Believe everything.